Hello and welcome back to the UK's #1 retro gaming podcast show. This is Retro Asylum. My name's Dean Swain and I'm joined by Jim.
Hello.
And our special guest, host for this episode, Mr. Darran Retro Gamer Jones. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm fine. Thank you very much for having me on the show again.
You're very welcome, mate. Now, we're having a few technical difficulties, so...
I've lost count of the takes we're up to.
Mostly caused by me, unfortunately.
Right, well, third time lucky. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, but now my luck, it'll cut off again in a second. But, yeah, we've got Mr. Darran Jones on. Darran, I think you've been with Retro Gamer for nearly 20 years now, come November. Is that right?
Yep, that's right. I think I started around about the 22nd, 23rd, 2005. So yeah, it's all about to happen. Exciting times.
Nice. And that was tied in with the end of the live publishing and the start of Imagine, would it have been? Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I obviously, for those that remember, I used to work on Games TM, and after working on the retro section, I took over as retro editor, and then I effectively, just before Highbury shut down, I was headhunted to run Retro Gamer, and I wasn't too sure at the time whether I should do it, because obviously Imagine was seen as a new company, and the people at Highbury were basically making out things to be a lot worse there than they ended up being. But it was something that I wanted to run my own magazine. So I think I thought about it over the weekend, and I accepted, and I've been there ever since.
Which has got to be a record, surely. As longest running editor.
I don't think so much for like obviously overseas, but in terms of UK gaming magazines, I should stress, I'm pretty confident that nobody's edited a magazine as long as I have. So you can either look at that as, I guess, a massive achievement or a damning indictment of my ability to move on with my life.
We'll say the former.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, it's a massive achievement, isn't it? I mean, do you think? I suppose that puts you second in terms of UK games mags. That maybe put you second behind just Edge in terms of longevity.
Well, Edge and PC Gamer, are slightly before us as well. So yeah, we're still a few years behind them, but when it's quite funny to think that a lot of the magazines we regularly cover in the magazine, due to things like magazine craft, we've outlived all of them.
Yeah.
In terms of how long they lasted.
Yeah.
And that's obviously that's nothing to do with the magazines themselves. It's the nature of video games. Obviously, new systems come out, so magazines either evolve or change to cover the new things.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that I suppose sets Retro Gamer apart, isn't it? There's always going to be an incoming audience, because there's always going to be new machines sort of turning retro, if you like. So and then you still got what we deem as retro now. So it's always constantly evolving, as opposed to just a magazine that focuses on, say, the PS2 back in the day, for example.
Yeah, like I always used to liken us to the slimes that you get in D&D, where we just absorb everything old. Everything new in it becomes old, and we can keep on doing that. So, I mean, it's one of those things that, as long as there's obviously no financial troubles, touching lots of wood, and there's absolutely no reason why Retro Gamer couldn't be around in another 20 years, because there'll be plenty of current stuff to talk about. And there's still plenty of obviously old stuff to cover. Like, when you consider that, we don't really go into the weeds with systems like the Acorn and Archimedes and that. I leave that to magazines like Pixel Addict. There's enough alternatives out there if you want hardcore retro content. We're a commercial magazine, and as much as some people don't like that, the easiest way to stay successful is to give people what they want.
Yeah.
And that's largely console stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which,
mainstream, isn't it?
It's mainstream, but you've, like you say, you've kept it going for all that time, so you're definitely doing something right.
No, sorry, no, I didn't mean like the magazine as mainstream.
Yeah,
I mean the more mainstream content as opposed to like the micro. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, about 8-9 years ago, I got asked by one of my old editor-in-chiefs, like, we should set up a magazine on Kickstarter. You know, leave Imagine, we'll do it all ourselves and stuff. And while it seemed a nice idea at the time, I think the problem is that from my point of view, if I was to do something like that, I'd just be doing stuff that I've already done. Like we've covered. You wouldn't believe it now because obviously most of it has ended up on YouTube channels and stuff. But we've brought so much stuff from behind the scenes of classic games to the world now. So it's like there's no, you couldn't do a making of Pac-Man in the first issue because we've done that. We've done Space Invaders, we've done Manic Miner, we've done Jet Set Willy, we've done Head Over Heels. So then you get to, well, what would I put in this magazine, which hasn't already been done elsewhere? Because again, I'm well aware that a lot of our readers don't tend to throw the magazine away because it can be used as obviously I don't like saying things like historical document, but ultimately
it's like a reference guide, though, isn't it?
That's
really?
a time.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, there's people in my house that would like me to throw it away, Darren. I'll be honest with you.
Oh, my wife's the same. That's part of the reason why I'm in the shed now. But we used to get a lot of complaints from readers, and they'd say like, "Oh, I can't believe you're covering XYZ again because you've literally just covered it." And what was happening was that we hadn't covered it, but they'd reread an issue which was like, say, 2 years old, and they just happened to have read a feature on something that we were now covering.
So it's fresh in their mind.
And I guess that's one of the strengths of the magazine, that basically, because people tend to not throw it away, you've always got it there as a resource. And also, everything we're covering is already old, so we don't face the issues that a lot of modern gaming magazines have to worry about, like staying relevant, because the stuff we're covering came out donkeys years ago.
Yeah. What should we do? Well, I take because I've got a whole load of questions and stuff to go down. But before we dive into all that, shall we do a bit of what we've been up to, Dean? It's been a little while.
Yeah, can do. We normally have a section on the show, Darren, where we just discuss retro gaming wise what we've been up to, and this thing here, my Vectrex, is currently dead, and I blame Jim. So that's what I've been up to, is trying to get that fixed.
Partly responsible.
You do like to tinker, don't you, with your CRTs and stuff? Is that not like dangerous?
I'll just try not to touch the bits that I know are dangerous. I've not even, you're supposed to discharge them, but no, I'll just go in there and hope for the best.
See, I wouldn't even know how to do that. I just assume that if it's turned off, you're fine.
No, not with CRTs and stuff. I've got the arcade machines, and I've had to discharge the monitors in those before, and I was very weary of doing it when I first done it. But yeah,
I remember you mentioning that on Twitter, actually.
Yeah,
at the time.
It used to frighten the life out of me. I've done it a couple of times now, and I'm okay with it. With the Vectrex, I think as long as it's off for long enough, you're probably okay. You can probably still get a shock from it, and it probably
it's
could
weird
kill
on
me.
the Vectrex because it still gets like power, even if it's off at the switch on the Vectrex. It's still drawing a small amount.
Yeah.
Because I fitted a plug with an actual switch on mine,
right,
to knock it off because it still draws a small amount.
Yeah. Always unplug these things before you go working on them. That's for sure.
But I think as long as you lick the probes and you don't get a bang, you should be all right, shouldn't you?
Yeah, you're fine, especially with a glass of water in your hand while you do it. I've tried a few different things to get this working. I've not had any luck yet. And we've just lost Darran again.
He'll be back.
He'll be back. Here he comes, hopefully.
3 weeks later.
Here he is. Right, so...
You literally... it came back just as... Because I still had a green tick, so that's why I couldn't work out why you disappeared.
It's strange. I don't know what's happening with this.
And your audio's just carried on as well.
Yeah.
So
it didn't cut off completely.
There's definitely a green tick showing on mine, so...
Strange.
I don't know what that means. Right. I've never used this before, so...
Don't worry. We'll be all right. Anyway, as I was saying, I've changed a chip over and I've cleaned the switch up on it, which sometimes can go wrong. That's not fixed it, but another chip that it could be, the CPU, which you recommended, Jim.
Yeah, that's what I've got on mine, yeah.
Yeah, that's arrived today, so as soon as I get a chance, it'll be over the weekend now, I'll tinker about with it and try not to kill myself and hopefully get it working again. If not...
Just sack it off and get a Vectrex Mini.
Yeah, but I've got a Vec Fever, which is... I don't know if you know about a Vec Fever. It's a cartridge which allows you to play arcade vector games on it, and it does some amazing things. Cool. Which, as much as I'm looking forward to the Vectrex Mini, I don't think you're going to get the Vec Fever on the Vectrex Mini. But yeah, the Vectrex Mini looks nice.
It does. Mm.
Yeah, it does look quite cool. In fact, we've got an interview with David in our next issue actually, which is on sale next week. Ish.
Plug. You beat us to it because we've got David on soon.
Got to do it. That's how we've been around for 20 years. Because I plug the shit out of it.
Why not? You learnt off of me, didn't you?
Certainly did.
plug away. What else have I been up to gaming wise? Not much, just on the arcade machines. Been playing Star Wars quite a bit. But no, other than that, tinkering with the Vectrex and not having much luck. Yourself?
Monkey Ball. A lot of Monkey Ball for the high score challenge.
Yeah.
Getting into that. I'm
GameCube version?
Month. The what, sorry?
The GameCube version?
GameCube, the original GameCube version,
It's the best one because of the hexagonal pop on the controller, so it just makes it easier hitting the angles and stuff.
That's it, yeah. Some of the guys went to Arcade Club this weekend, just gone and posted a few pictures of the arcade with its sort of phallus joystick. Yeah, a lot easier to control it with a GameCube controller, that's for sure. Yeah.
It's funny you should mention that because I went up to Arcade Club recently and I did exactly the same thing.
Straight to the Monkey Ball controller.
Yeah, straight to the Monkey Ball controller and handling it so it looked like a willy.
There we go.
That's the one. That's the one. So yeah.
Yeah. Great machine and great game.
It is, yeah. So yeah, a lot of Monkey Ball, and I listened to a fairly recent RGDS episode where they were going through. It was Kingy and Drisk, I think. They were going through the Ridge Racer series.
Nice.
And on the GameCube, there's a Ridge Racer game that I'd never even fired up. So R Racing Evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been playing a little bit of that as well. I can see why it's not as well regarded. It's a very different Ridge Racer experience. But
so that was quite popular at the time. I'm not sure if it came out over here, but in definitely in the States, it basically came with Pac-Man Versus.
That's it, yeah.
So yeah, because I ended up importing my copy, and it was largely because I really wanted to play Pac-Man Versus.
Ah, nice.
And Ridge Racer was kind of like a bonus.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it's it's not the sort of typical Ridge Racer experience in terms of the big drifts and all that sort of thing. It's kind of like almost a Ridge Racer Gran Turismo sort of no man's land, sort of little bit of both almost, really. But no, I'm having it's fun to go back to a new Ridge Racer game. That's a series that definitely needs to get a bit more love, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, because they used to largely come out at launch for a lot of consoles, and apparently the main reason why they did that was because racing games are a really good way of showing off the fidelity and power of a new system. Because obviously most of the Ridge Racers would be at 60 frames a second, so you can just have them looking slick as hell, and it was a good way of impressing people.
Yeah, and it looks great today. I think I play it on the CRT just off the camera here, and I still think it holds up. It still looks really good. Obviously, some of the backgrounds are a little bit static compared to what you get now, but I still think it looks absolutely fantastic. Yeah, really good.
Yeah, well, the GameCube is a really impressive console anyway.
Is.
In terms of like, I'm sure I remember once when we interviewed Julian Eggbrecht. And he made the suggestion that the main reason why the Rogue Squadron games didn't come out on the Xbox was because they felt the GameCube was more powerful and the Xbox wouldn't be able to do it justice. So whether that's true or not, but if you think of that like original Xbox Star Wars game on GameCube, it looked incredible.
Yeah. I think when you think of that GameCube hardware, it was pretty much what the Wii was, wasn't it? It was an overclocked GameCube. I'm sort of playing it down a little bit, but in some ways it was an overclocked GameCube.
It's funny you should say that because when Games TM went to E3 the year that the Wii that they were discussing the Wii. One of Nintendo's PRs, I can't remember who it was, but they basically described the Wii as being as powerful as two GameCubes sellotaped together. I've always remembered that. I just found it really funny.
I'd like to see that.
What a quote!
Yeah, you can have that quote on the mag.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to know if it was true, but like I said, I wasn't there at the time. This was just relayed to me, but it's always stuck with me because it's just funny.
Yeah, you can imagine in the booth with two GameCubes sort of sellotaped together.
Yeah,
that's the prototype.
Yeah, work in progress. Yeah. What about you, Darren? What have you been playing? Sort of retro or modern or?
So we're obviously at a period in the mag where there is just so much stuff coming out. So I've been reviewing some games for the mag, which unfortunately are redacted because they're not out yet. But in terms of old games, I've been I recently completed Luigi's Mansion.
Nice.
On Steam Deck. And I'm currently playing, I'm about 12 hours into The Lord of the Rings, The Third Age, the PS2 version, which I'm also playing on Steam Deck, because one of the emulators that you can use, there's a thing called Retro Achievements.
Yep.
So people basically give, obviously, old games achievements. So I'm like, you obviously don't need achievements in old games because they were perfectly fine without them. But I was thinking, if I'm going to sink 30 hours into a game, I want a little extra reward. So I've been doing that. So I pretty much play everything on Steam Deck at the moment. I think it's a fantastic device. So most of my retro gaming is now done on that. And then when I'm not playing retro stuff, I just play a lot of the Zen pinball tables.
Yeah.
Because I think they're fantastic, and I've got access to all of them. So that's around, I don't know, 60 tables or something.
Do you find that you'd flitter between the tables, or do you sort of try to focus your time on one?
I try and focus. I mean, I like pinball games. They're very much like shmups in that they feel like gaming in their purest form because it's all about getting a high score, and it's all about knowing how the mechanics work so that you can squeeze the best out of it. But yeah, I mean, I've been playing those for years. If I had the space, I'd love a pinball table, but
That was my next question. Have you got one?
Well, the problem with pinball tables, which is obviously something you're going to be well aware of, Dean, is that because they're mechanical,
stuff goes
they tend
wrong.
to break down.
Yep.
And I am not the sort of person who is able to fix stuff. So I was tempted to get one for a very, very, very long time, and then when I realised how much work they actually require, I was like, well, this is pointless because I might get say 3-6 months out of it, and then it's just going to be dead forever.
Yeah.
So I never bothered in the end.
Yeah.
A lot of moving parts.
Yeah. There's a lot of digital versions out there, like commercial digital versions out there now, isn't there? So like the at game stuff, you can get a pretty much a full size at games with the USB, and you can connect it up to a PC as well. So you can just get the DMD and all that sort of stuff. So I think, but it's a bit of a rabbit hole, isn't it? If you want to go down that sort of thing.
I think that's a problem general though in collecting. It's like it doesn't matter what you collect, but there's always the opportunity to spend silly amounts of money on it.
There is. So
you just and I have more than enough hobbies, so I can't really start getting into pinball as well. Another thing that put me off is there's a place called Ready When Lit up in Salisbury, which is a big, huge like pinball collection.
Oh, cool.
And all the guys there get their tables together, and you can go onto this industrial site and play them. And they just said that you can't have one pinball table because you'll just get bored.
Yeah.
And then you end up getting more and more.
Same with arcade machines, isn't it, really?
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, look how many babies yours have had now.
Well, yeah. Luckily, these are MAME cabs, really. You know, apart from the arcade one-up Star Wars, I can play a number of games on these. But yeah, when you've got a dedicated machine, I can imagine, you get bored of it sooner or later.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And while you could like probably sell it on and replace it, but I just don't have the space, unfortunately. But it's not as though you can't play these things. All right, it may not be as accurate as playing an at games version of that, but ultimately there are ways to obviously access old stuff if you want to.
Yeah, I do find like with a pinball, because I play a lot of the pinball effects stuff as well. I do, and what I'd done was took a arcade stick, put a couple of buttons into the side of it, wired them up to like the the R2 L2 buttons in the arcade stick. So you've still got that sort of physical. You're hitting the side of something. Turn my PC monitor portrait, and I feel like kind of scratches the itch. So yeah.
I do the same with mine. I can turn this monitor vertical, and I'll play shmups and pinball on it. So yeah, it's good fun.
Yeah.
Get used to that real estate.
Yeah, that's it.
What other stuff are you into, Darran, other than the games? Because you was into a bit of bird watching, I remember you saying, and I can see.
Yeah, I'm into everything. So recently I was diagnosed as being autistic,
right?
And so I tend to really hyper focus on stuff.
Yep.
And I find it once I get something into my head, I just go all in.
Yeah.
And then I'll inevitably get bored, and I'll move on to something else. So I've done like obviously I do my bird watching. I still collect video games, although I've not been buying anywhere near as many as I used to. I have a large 4K Blu-ray collection, a large Blu-ray collection. You can probably see a little bit of it, but I've got Lego fucking everywhere. On one side, I've got all my Hot Toys figures, which are like high-end premium 12-inch figures, and then on this side, I've got all my little 6-inch figures, all Star Wars.
Yep.
So there you go.
Nice.
There's Mara Jade, and there's a Jew back in the background and stuff. So that's my latest obsession.
Yeah.
And but so I've been collecting. I got into Black Series in May this year for no other reason than I was thinking, oh, maybe I could get a deal because it's May the 4th, and I might be able to get a good discount on the Hot Toys. And I didn't find any discounts, but I did find some cheap Black Series figures. So I thought, you know what, I'll buy a couple of them just to see what the quality's like, and if I like them, I'll go from there. Anyway, that was May, and
It sucks
I've
you
got
in.
about 90 figures now.
What's the market like for that in comparison to, say, collecting a video game? Do you find it's similar in terms of like prices compared to what they were to how they are now, and like is it comparable? Are there a lot of them out there on the market? I don't know.
It's better. So for example, these figures typically retail at like 20-25 quid. And apart from the bigger figures like the Jew back there, and I've got a torn somewhere and things like that, it's very rare that you have to pay over the odds. But the figures like the Jew back goes for like 100 to 200 quid. The torn goes for like 100 quid.
Do you have to jump on them straight away? Because I found with other lines, certain figures will go out of production quickly.
But yeah, it's in terms of prices, it just all depends. But you can get good deals by going on Facebook groups and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's what I tend to do. So like my figures like the Jew back, on eBay it goes for like 200 quid, but I paid half that. So which is obviously still a lot of money. But what I tend to do is I just sell other stuff to pay for the new stuff I want.
Yeah.
And I'm just fortunate enough that obviously I've got various hobbies which go for quite a lot of money on the second-hand market.
Nice. Good investment.
Do you make... God, sorry.
I was just saying, good investment then, sometimes.
Yeah. Do you make...
Yeah, I mean, it's just luck, really. I mean, I've got a Lego Ghostbusters firehouse up there. I bought it in the sales at Toys R Us, and I think I paid 160 quid Black Friday, which, is an obscene amount of money for Lego, but it now goes for like 700.
Crazy.
So,
crazy prices.
It is. It's madness. And then, video games are even crazier. I mean, we've just we do this piece called Game and Grails now, where we look at obviously rare price games.
Yeah.
And one of the games that I'm covering at the moment, I bulked 30 years ago at paying 60 quid for it because I thought it was too much money, and it now goes for over 1,000.
Yeah.
So, and this is part of the reason why I don't have the issues with emulation that some people do, because ultimately, normally emulation is the only way you can play stuff, because video game publishers unfortunately don't do a good enough job of making everything accessible to people.
That's the question I was going to ask you, because I think the last time you were on, we was talking about your relationship with publishers. In the past, I remember you was having trouble getting assets, art and stuff from publishers of old games. Is that still the case?
It can be. It's become a lot better because obviously retro gaming in general is in a very different position than it was 20 years ago. And, basically, if you think of places like Gamescom and that, the amount of retro related stuff, which is like showing off at these places now, would have been like unthinkable, like even 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So, some companies are a lot better at keeping hold of their old assets and stuff than others. But generally, we've been around long enough now that we don't normally have the problems getting stuff like we used to.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that sometimes you do try and get a piece of art and it's like it just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Because they don't have, because obviously I guess from a publisher's point of view, they're just making games, and it's just something they do, and then they're on to the next one.
Yeah, sure.
So some publishers and developers are a lot better at maintaining their back catalogues than others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So that's
guess it's the
something
same. I was going to just say, it's the same as the BBC used to tape over old programs because they didn't think anyone would be interested in it anymore.
Yeah, well, look at all the shit with Doctor Who, where they've like lost episodes and stuff because for those very sorts of reasons. And then there's other things like, I think there's obviously one of the famous Saturn related stories is that the source code's apparently been lost for Panzer Dragoon Saga, and that's why it's never been like re-released or anything. So it just happens, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Is that something that you're quite conscious of at Retro Gamer in terms of trying to keep like a record of all this sort of thing? Because obviously, I was just going to say, because like obviously Retro Gamers changed hands. So like, what was it? Live, Imagine, then Future, and then if I was trying to like work through it, and I ended up going down a rabbit hole with Paragon, who did the Sega and Nintendo Pros and all that. But obviously, pretty much everything is now owned by Future. Does that then give you an archive to sort of go back into for things like the cover mount sections and things like that, or is that? Or is it so difficult to try and find out what is owned that it's easier almost just to not try?
I think one of the biggest issues with the older mags is that it's just the way they're stored and the way obviously mags were made. So a lot of the very old Future mag stuff is all on DAT tapes and that.
Yeah.
So and that can be a nightmare getting information from. But we've been quite lucky that one of Future's art editors is well into his retro, and he actually he's always looking at backing up stuff whenever he gets the opportunity. So it becomes a lot easier for us. For example, the issue we've got, and I don't think this is a spoiler because we're out next week, but the issue we've got coming out next week has got Banjo-Kazooie on the cover, and the artwork we've used from that has come from an old issue of Edge from back in the day. So it's basically a rendered piece of art that they had.
Oh, nice.
And we've just used that. And otherwise, that would have been quite difficult because getting hold of the new artwork hasn't been easy because, again, one of the other things you have is that when new publishers pick up and then you're going through so many other people, like you have to, all Banjo stuff now, you have to go through Rare, but actually you have to go through Microsoft.
Yeah.
And it could be, I'm not saying that this has happened in this instance, but it could be that while a developer might want to help you out, an actual publisher won't. So, which is part of the reason why we always try and do everything outside of publishers, because our readers come first, and we have to get the best stories for them.
Yeah. So does that? It's probably like a really daft question or a bit naive on my part, but does that give you would that give you, right, say you wanted to do a book zine and you wanted to do a book zine concentrating on, I don't know, say Cube. We've been talking about the GameCube, for example, and I know you was one of the writers on Cube, I think, as well.
I did freelance for it, yeah. So
you wanted to do a book zine on Cube. Could you, and it worked out that Future owned the rights to the Cube back catalogue, could you say, right, we're going to do a book zine, I'll pick the best articles out, there's your book zine? Is that something hypothetically that you could do, or is it a lot more complicated than that?
So one of the forward-thinking things that Imagine did back in the day is they had something called Content King, and the whole thing is like, because content is king. So basically, if you've got content, then you can do anything with it. And so you could have a story, and then you can turn it into like little news stories to put on your website using quotes and then pointing it to this and that. So one of the things that Imagine did back in the day is they took all of their Paragon magazines and everything that they'd ever done, and they created PDFs of everything. So yeah, if we wanted to, we could take all the old issues of GameCube Cube magazine and basically put them out in form. I mean, that's basically how we did issue 1 of Retro Gamer.
Yeah.
I think the only differences were we took out the ads, and we might have had to take out 1 or 2 features where it wasn't clear if we owned the rights to the original piece of work. But yeah, it's all there, and even now, you know those the little books that we sometimes do. I've got a couple here that come with the magazine.
Yes. Yeah.
So typically with those, one of the easiest ways, because me and Nick will put one of those together in a week, and one of the reasons why we're able to do them so quickly is because we can literally go back to past issues of the mag where we know that we've got those screenshots, and you can just reuse them, and you're using them in a new context, but it just saves you that time of replaying the game to get to the points of taking the screenshots. So I think Imagine was very forward thinking. I mean, we're going back a good 11, 12 years ago when they first started doing all this, and it's still serves us well today. So, don't get me wrong, I don't think there would be absolutely any interest at all in a Cube magazine book, but yeah, if we wanted to do something like that, there would be the option. It just comes down to the same old questions when you're in a company like ours. Is it viable?
Yeah.
And how much money can we make off it, and is it worth us doing? And I would imagine that something like Cube, probably not.
Yeah.
You did bring back your Sinclair for one issue, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean that again, that was under the live publishing days, and I think there's just Amiga formats just come back via Amiga Addict, which is pretty cool. But again, and I don't want us to sound like we're a victim of our own success, but things like that cost
more trouble than
quite a lot of money to make. Well, it's not that they're more trouble than they're worth. It's just that compared to smaller magazines, the circulation we require it becomes too costly to do.
Yeah.
Like we'd love to put like a disc on the cover.
Yep.
But the cost of doing that, considering our circulation, is insane. So there's just some things that we can't do because we've become successful.
Yeah.
But again, if you want that sort of stuff, there's plenty of places you can get it, and that's why we tend to save it for really special editions, like when we did issue 200 and things like that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right.
But those same things are what keeps you on the shelves at WH Smith's, aren't they, or whatever they're called these days.
T.G. Jones.
And we sometimes come under flack because of like the things we cover or don't cover. But again, we exist for one reason, and that reason is to make a profitable magazine. And you don't, for example, I love the Amstrad CPC 464. It's the first home computer I owned. It's never been on the cover because it wouldn't fucking sell. And that really pains me to say that, but that's the reality of it. We don't have many 8-bit games on the covers anymore because they don't sell anywhere near as well as the console games do. And ultimately, I like my job, and I'd like to stay in it.
Understandable.
Yeah.
And we're fortunate that there's so many great zines out there, like Freeze and like Pixel Addict and Amiga Addict and Crash and Zap and everything else. So these things exist. So that if you were buying Retro Gamer every month purely for Commodore 64 content, it must be quite a difficult decision to do that when you know that you could buy a dedicated book like Freeze every month instead.
Yeah.
So you know we're very lucky that we have a loyal readership and stuff, but the very nature of the mag's success is that as we continue and as obviously new things become old, we inevitably have to start squeezing them into the mag.
Sure.
And we've covered a lot of the old stuff as well. So you have to find new stuff to cover or new ways of covering old stuff.
Yeah, I think it shows you just how big the retro scene has become, though. You've got Retro Gamer magazine, which is doing really well still, and there's room for these other magazines, which must be proving popular enough to keep going themselves. It's amazing, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact that you can go into like W.H. Smith's and buy an Amiga magazine in 2025 is
that's crazy,
insane.
Yeah.
But it's also amazing, and again, and I think the thing to take away from this as well is that a lot of the time these magazines, these other magazines, sorry, I should say, they're being put together by passionate people who are often holding down full-time jobs.
Yeah.
So the fact that they can do, like what you guys are doing, the fact that you can do your jobs and still find the time and passion to do a podcast, which has gone on for God knows how many issues now. I know this is 360, but like you said, you've done a few others, and and that's a testament to the passion that you all have for this hobby ultimately.
Yeah.
It does feel like you go onto Kickstarter and it feels like there's a new book or there's a new magazine that's sort of being kickstarted every other day, really. So there is obviously still there is a market there for it.
Yeah, and the audience is out there, and as long as people want it, people will keep on making it, and that goes for Retro Gamer as well. As long as we continue,
are you still there, Dean?
Increasing our readership and our subs remain strong and everything else, there's absolutely no reason why the magazine can't continue.
Right, you cut out there, I'm afraid, Darran. So we got as far as.
All right.
It was just that. So it was just after I said there's a market still for it.
Yeah, and so basically, as long as magazines like Retro Gamer, as long as you can stay relevant, you can keep on increasing your readership and keep on increasing your subs, there's no reason why we won't still be around in like 5-10 years, and these other magazines have got a very good chance of doing exactly the same.
Yeah. Right, so when you're mapping out upcoming issues, obviously you don't go issue to issue, you have it sort of mapped out sort of months in hand. I imagine like a storyboard with like strings going here, there and everywhere in an office, but probably not.
Oh, like that gif of Charlie from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where he's got all the conspiracy theory stuff on strings and that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, we do plan ahead to a point. So, for example, the issue which comes out in January is already flat planned, and the cover feature is already being written. We've already got the cover feature being written for next issue. So yeah, we do tend to try and be, particularly this kind of time of year, because we don't have a lot of time over Christmas to make the mag, because we lose 10 days. So yeah, you do have to plan ahead, and but we're just very lucky that we have access to a lot of freelancers who are always pitching interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I do with the magazine now, back in the day when I was obviously just starting and I wasn't as good as doing what I do now, stuff would just be fucking throwing higgledy-piggledy all over the place. So you might go from reading a PS2 feature to a SNES feature to a Spectrum feature to something else. And I kind of did that as a way of like keeping the magazine exciting. So like, what crazy stuff, you never know what you're going to get next. This guy's mad. He's just like put I'm only like halfway into the mag, and I'm already looking at this stuff. What we tend to do now, though, is each issue works more like a timeline. So you start off with the 8-bit stuff, and then by the end of that issue, you will have like PS2, Dreamcast,
Yeah.
Xbox 360. So each issue works as like a little journey through gaming, if you will. And there'll be a few pages where you might have one thing come out before the other, but in general, it's largely in error of bits. And I just think that makes it a more streamlined read, and it also allows people to kind of subconsciously turn to the parts of the mag that they want to read first, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure, yeah. So,
yeah, a bit like how the old magazines were news section, previews, reviews, and then tips feature, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, so you have all this different bittage into the mag for want of a better name, but it does mean that you can't have a huge 8-bit section, because then you don't have a large 16-bit section, and we've just got way too much stuff now to cover.
Yeah.
So you try to do a little bit of everything to try and keep everyone happy, and it's very hard to do, because some people idea of retro is just 8-bit or 16-bit.
Yeah. Why is there no typing section anymore?
So, in all fairness, we only ever did that once for issue 100, and that was an absolute nightmare checking to make sure it worked. I must have typed it 4 or 5 times on a C64. But yeah, we're not doing that again. And obviously, unfortunately, we probably wouldn't do it again either, because obviously the amazing guy who did it, Jason Kelk, sadly passed away due to COVID. So so that was part of the reason why we changed the homebrew section, because there were plenty of people who wanted it to continue, but it didn't feel right bringing it back in its original form, because that was Jason's. So Andrew Fisher has done obviously a great job like reinventing it, so it's still homebrew, but it doesn't feel like it's stepping on Jason's toes. It's working alongside what he did rather than replacing what he did, if that makes sense.
I think that's the right thing to do.
So Phoenix Z80 says, what's your favourite magazine that's not gaming related, and do you read any comics? If so, which ones?
Favorite magazine which isn't gaming related it's really sad, but I'm going to go for Empire.
Yes.
And it's not, so I don't buy it for the reviews, because ultimately I think you can get more insight into reviews of something by just going onto a forum and just seeing what everybody thinks about something.
Yep.
But in terms of their access has always been incredible, and that even after all this time, they still get hold of incredible stuff. I don't really read many comics. I used to be really into the Dandy when I was very young. My mother-in-law still buys me Viz every year, the annual at Christmas for some reason. But no, I've never really been into comics. So I think this is why I used to upset so many people at work when the Marvel films and that started coming out, because to me it wasn't like a childhood dream being realized.
Yeah.
I was just looking at them as films, and for a lot of the time I'd be like, well, that's a load of shit. and it's like, oh no, but you can't, but it's like, but it's not a very good film. Oh yeah, but they're doing this. So I used to read a bit of 2000 AD back in the day, but no, I've just never really had time for comics. Although saying that, I am currently reading some Star Wars stuff.
Nice.
So I found this. So this was an annual that I had when I was 10 years old, and I found it the other day for £3. And I've been reading this, which is basically a graphic novel of the novel Shadows of the Empire.
Yes, yeah, obviously the N64 game, yeah.
Maybe I'll read some more stuff, but yeah, I've just never really been into comics, and I don't know why. Transformers comic I read for a little while.
That's
as well.
what I was into as a kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I find it sort of goes in cycles. So I've just started getting back in. I just pulled these out. So there's a new series, Masters of the Universe series from Dark Horse Comics, The Sword of the Floors. I'll show you that one. And then if you remember, depending on your age, back in 1994, there was the Spider-Man animated TV series. Well, they've just started a series of comics based on that series, like a continuation of that series. So it uses like all the same artwork,
Oh,
the
that's
classic
cool.
artwork. Yeah. So that's just, I think the second issue's just come out. I've just got. So yeah, but yeah, I sort of dip in and out of it. I don't follow everything.
Tell a lie. Another thing I can remember is I used to read the Dark Horse comics, Alien versus Predator.
Oh yeah.
Because my mate used to buy it, so I just read his. And I still don't understand to this day why they didn't just copy that story, because it was miles better than what they came up with. Same with Indiana Jones, though. Like, you made the Crystal of the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. You could have just made a film version of Fate of Atlantis. I would have watched that. It would have been amazing.
Yeah.
But hey-ho, what do I know? I'm not George Lucas.
He knows better, doesn't he? Obviously.
Yeah, he certainly does.
Yeah. You're
Right, should we go on to our next question then? Right, this is from Paul Monaghan, Paul Magazine Monaghan, by the way.
Oh, I know
you
that
know
guy.
Paul.
He's a lovely chap.
He started off on Retro Asylum. Of course he's lovely. See, this is the thing. People who know me get to go on to do better things than what I get to do.
The influence you've had, Dean.
Yeah. Right. Oh, wow, he says. Not oh, well. Oh, wow. Looking forward to this then. What is the biggest challenge you have faced whilst doing the mag? Or how have you... God, my eyes are going. I say this every episode.
You have to get to that optician's, Dean.
Yeah, I really do. How have you not lost your mind doing the mag work for so long?
So again, I don't want to be boastful, but it's the same with any job. I've done this for a very long time now. So anybody who's crafted their work for like 20 years is going to be good at it. Otherwise, you shouldn't be doing the job. So we don't have anywhere near the challenges that we used to have at Imagine. The way Future works is very, very different. And I would say back in those days, the biggest challenge was covers and getting the right cover, getting it to a point that everybody used to be happy with. And that used to cause me no end of stress. And we would also go very late. So to give you an example, on deadline day, under Imagine, we would typically work till anything from 10 in the evening till 2, 3 in the morning. And I think the longest stint I ever did in a single day was 26 hours.
Ouch.
Under Future, the magazine goes very early in the morning of the day it's supposed to go, rather than the next morning. So because it's just a completely different way of working. So I don't really have challenges now other than the same that anybody would have with a magazine, i.e. getting good access, getting good interviews, because obviously Retro Gamer, we pride ourselves on developer-based content more than anything else. And, when it comes to like Japanese devs, that can still be tricky. But again, it's not as tricky as it was. And that's simply because
Google Translate.
We've been around for a long time now, and we've kind of paid our dues.
Yeah. And I suppose everything's more instant now, isn't it? Whereas before you might have had to send out letters to company and wait for them to come back with social media and everything else. Everything's instant. So
yeah, I mean, one of as much as I genuinely believe that social media is one of the worst things to have happened to mankind, it is very good for tracking people down. And as long as you ignore it, because social media is basically a dick waving contest. It's basically all it really comes down to is look at what I'm doing, look at what I've done, look at the holiday I'm on, look at what I've got. and it's just for shit bragging rights. And I do that as well. I'm no better than anyone else, but in terms of, I keep my social media because it is really still good for tracking people down, and we've been able to get hold of a lot of people because they happen to have a social media account, and we've had no other way of getting hold of them. So it can have its uses, but again, like anything, it can also have its downsides.
Yeah. So Baz AMC1, he says he wants to know if you could pick one feature out of any issue that you're most proud of, or which one would you revisit if you could? Looking forward to listening to this one.
Oh, that's easy. That's my Strider feature. Making of Strider, like my favorite game. Able to interview Yotsui, the guy who basically made it, and thanks to John Shipaniak who set all that up for us and got the questions. And my regret is that it never went on the cover, but I got to do it later with a Capcom split run. And then the only other one outside of that is the rare feature we did to celebrate the 250th issue.
Yeah, I remember that one.
No,
yeah.
Was it the 250th issue of the mag, or was it? It was either no. It might have been. It was an anniversary of the mag, or it was the 250th issue.
I can see the cover.
We had this. We had this amazing. See, I can't even remember. That's how many of these I've been doing now. But it was 257. So it must have been. Yeah, it was the 20th anniversary of the mag. So 20. Yeah, because it's my 20th anniversary. That's where I'm getting confused. So yeah, so we did 20th anniversary of the magazine. We had an amazing Will Overton cover, and we had this huge feature where we broke down Rare into all the different eras, the 16-bit stuff, the Spectrum stuff, the 8-bit stuff, the Microsoft years. I was really chuffed with how that came off, and I think that's one of the things that I'm really lucky about. That even after all this time, I still get a massive kick out of having the mag come back from the printers, seeing it on shelves. It never doesn't excite me to have something that you can physically hold in your hands and go, I've made this. It's great.
Yeah. There's room for a part 2 there as well, I suppose, isn't there? With the downfall of Microsoft.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly seem to be upsetting a lot of people at the moment.
Yeah.
But that's games companies for you. They all evolve. I mean, look at all the furor when Konami came out of like making new games because they were going into pachinko stuff. But then if you think about it, it's no different from when I'm sure that there was lots of audio fans moaning when Konami went out of the jukebox business to make video games.
Yeah.
Companies evolve all the time.
They do, yeah. Well,
and sometimes they evolve along with you, and sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
And it's sad, but it happens.
Yeah. But they're back. They're sort of dipping their toe in again now, aren't they, Konami? They're sort of.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously they had the remake of Metal Gear Solid. Silent Hill F was very, very enjoyable. We've just recently reviewed that. So yeah, I mean, I think the tipping point for them will, if they ever make a Metal Gear game with a new Metal Gear game without Kojima.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm still holding out. They've obviously just done the Gradius collection. I'm just holding out hope for a Parodius collection. I love that. I would love that.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the things which is going in Konami's favor in that. Yes, they're largely just redoing compilations and things like that, but they're not giving them to just anybody. They know how respected M2 are. So and again, you could say, well, that Gradius Origins collection was great, but Gradius 5 wasn't included in this. Gradius wasn't included, but these things still cost money to make. So the fact that they're even being made is still a great thing.
Yeah.
Even if they're not always as good as we want them to be, because again, licenses and everything else can rear its ugly head.
Yeah. And you've got to remember, obviously, they're a business, so they've got to think if part one sells, they've got to leave some stuff out for the part two, haven't they?
Yeah,
As
absolutely.
a consumer, I hate it, but from their point of view,
I don't think these companies are stupid. Like they must be aware of how much some of their games sell for on the second-hand market, and they want to get into it. And this is why. So if I was to give somebody £500 for Panzer Dragoon Saga, Sega don't benefit from that. So Sega are aware of how popular that game is on the secondary market. So I'd imagine that they're trying to find a way that they can bring it back. And again, you look at like Nintendo. Nintendo don't do digital purchases anymore. They want to lock you into a monthly fee. And as much as I don't like that, I'd much rather be in a situation where I could buy the digital games I want, because obviously stuff can move around in that. But you absolutely understand why they're doing it, because it's constant money rolling into them all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas if they were to maybe bring out a specific game, maybe nobody really buys it, and then the server space just isn't that useful for them. Look at what's happening with the streaming services. The likes of Disney, Paramount Plus, they're all licensing their stuff back to Netflix now, because ultimately they're not making any money off it when it's on their own servers.
Yeah.
So, and again, going back to what we said earlier, it's all about making money. At the end of the day, that's all it ever comes down to. They don't. Nintendo didn't make the Switch 2 out of the goodness of its hearts. The Sony didn't make the PS5 because it wanted to give something back to the players. That's why these companies do it. They want to make money, and if it's more beneficial for them to offer you a subscription service rather than letting you buy stuff as and when you want, then that's what they're going to do.
Yeah. And if you want to buy it, you can buy Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 for like 70 quid. Whatever it is, 60 quid.
Yeah, I mean, stuff like that's really hard, because obviously there's two ways of looking at it, isn't there? On the one hand, you could say it's £65 for like two games that came out on the Wii. On the other hand, you could say it's £65 for two of the greatest 3D platformers ever made. So it's how, and again, you start getting to that whole granular thing of what's expensive to one person isn't necessarily expensive to another.
Yeah.
So, it's very hard reviewing stuff and taking into account the price of what something is, because there's no guarantee it's necessarily going to be that price in like a month's time or 2 months' time.
Yeah.
Although with Nintendo stuff obviously
tends to hold its price,
tends to hold its value.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's difficult. On the other hand, you can make the argument that you can buy that physical copy of Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, knowing that it will never lose its value, and if anything, it may rise in value. So yes, swings and roundabouts. But yeah, if you've got the original Wii games, I'd imagine you'd want to think long and hard about whether it is worth the upgrade. But if you don't have access to those, then you could, to a lot of people, it's going to be a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But again, that's a whole. I'm always fascinated by the whole like collecting side of it, because so many retro games now are so much money to acquire. So it comes down to everybody has their own tipping point of how much is too much.
Yeah. And
while somebody will bulk at something, to give you an example, my wife will happily spend like £60-70 on a pair of black jeans, despite the fact that she owns lots of black jeans, but she likes black jeans. But she can't understand why I would spend £200 on a Hot Toys Star Wars figure. Everybody likes their own things, and you can't tell people how to spend what they should and shouldn't be spending their money on, because we all like different things.
Absolutely.
Right, guys.
Sorry, that might have sounded a bit ranty.
No,
there.
I like it.
I didn't mean it to
I
sound
agree
ranty,
completely.
Right.
but I am fascinated with the whole collecting side of things because, and again, it's just not cheap now. So you have to once upon a time, if you wanted to collect retro games, you could just like fucking think, oh, I want to collect the Mega Drive, and then within a couple of weeks, you would have a sizable collection. You can't really do that now for most stuff because stuff is really expensive, and the mad thing is like if I've got, you can see it in the background there, but I've got an NTSC N64 collection, and prices for that shot up during the pandemic, and they've never really dropped. So if you want Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo 64 for a US copy, despite the fact that it obviously sold in its millions, because the market for it in the UK is so intense, you'll be lucky to get a copy for under £250, which is madness.
I'm just working.
Like this is a game that sold in its millions.
I'm just working out what.
But it's popular.
I'm just working out what that is in inflation terms. So it was like 50 quid, obviously, back in the day. So yeah, about 100 quid, isn't it?
So, and then when you look at the price of video games today, like, you know, it's becoming more and more obvious that video games companies want to push us towards that £100 mark. But if you want to play devil's advocate, and going back to what you said about inflation, like we were paying, I mean, I paid 120 quid for an import copy of Star Fox. You at the same time you could buy Super Nintendo in Powland for the same amount of money, and I spent that on an import game. Street Fighter Turbo was like 60 quid in Woolworths, like back in the 90s. So you can make an argument that video games are actually relatively quite cheap compared to if you take inflation into account.
Yeah, I would.
That's not to say I want to spend £100 on a video game, because I don't. But again, I'm in a very fortunate situation where we are often given games to review, and not everybody has that luxury.
Yeah, I would say gaming now is a relatively cheap hobby in terms of the amount of stuff that's accessible for free. Companies are constantly putting. You can sign up to Epic, for example, and they'll be giving out free games. Amazon do it. Steam, there's constant sales.
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking. I guess when I was talking about games from that perspective, it's about the older stuff. The older stuff.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I wanted to rebuy a PC Engine for the third time and start a collection, I couldn't really do it now because the genre I'm most interested in, shmups, I would either have to start selling my dollies, or I would have to like sell a kidney or something in order to be able to afford them.
Yeah. What a system for...
Yeah, absolutely. And the Mega CD. The Mega CD is another system now, which is, it's prohibitively too expensive for me to consider collecting, because I wouldn't be able to just have a couple of games. I would have to have all the games that I'd want, and, you know, Snatcher, what, 600-700 quid. It's it's just not viable. And I'd imagine that a lot of people face that as well, which is why so many people have started moving towards emulation now. I mean, do you guys see that in your areas?
Yeah,
that emulation has become a lot more popular.
Yeah, I mean, we've all got misters. A lot of our listeners are using emulation. I think we've always, or at least for a long time, we pushed for hardware to be used, really. But I'm just as guilty as at using emulation. The arcade machines are all emulated. I haven't got proper arcade PCB at all in my collection.
Well, you know, I've got a Dreamcast and I've got a GameCube, and they're just ODEs. So you know, optical. So you can obviously you can still have the hardware, so you're still playing it, so the games still run correctly and everything.
Yeah, I've got the same with Dreamcast.
A lot of it for me now is space.
Yeah,
it's just like, you know, this stuff takes up a lot, and you can't you can't store it all. Something has to give. Most of my stuff is currently up in the loft,
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like I'm an Aaron whether I thought I'd put it up in the loft, and then if in the next year I haven't thought, you know what, I really want to play on the SNES, then I don't need to play on the SNES and I can sell it all. And if I do want to play on the SNES, I've got a SNES Mini.
Yeah.
So, and I can add some stuff to that if I want to. So, so yeah, it's, you know, I've been doing the same with my digital films. I don't buy anywhere near as many 4K Blu-rays as I used to because of space. And there's that line, isn't there, from Fight Club, that Tyler Durden quotes where he says, "The things you own end up owning you."
Yeah.
And you know, I don't want to. You know, I get overwhelmed sometimes by the sheer amount of stuff I have, and like sometimes, you know, like you get that with Netflix and that where you all decide to watch a film, and then it takes you half an hour to decide what you want to watch because
Yeah.
you've got so much choice.
Yeah.
And I'll have the same with my games collection. Like, you know, I don't have huge amounts of games, but like I've got like 60 odd PlayStation 1 games. I've got like maybe 80 PS2 games, and sometimes I just like don't know what to play.
Yeah. I'm the same really. I find my go-tos are the like on the PS2 for example. I'm looking up now. Are the arcade games that I've got? So it's the ports of like Virtua Tennis, Outrun, the classic Sega Classics collection. It's stuff like that I go to those rather than the GTAs and stuff like that. So all that sort of the long play stuff is the same as you really. It's up in the attic. Just yeah.
And I'm kind of similar in like I think that's one of the reasons why I like shmups so much, because they don't require a lot of time, and if you've got a spare like half hour, I can have a couple of games of Batsugin on my Steam Deck, or I can play Slap Fight, or I can play the Capcom Arcades Classics collection that's on Steam and stuff like that. So they just retro games tend to fit into my life a lot better than, you know, that's not to say that I don't like obviously big games, but most of my big games playing is obviously largely put aside now for reviews and stuff.
Yeah.
So I use the retro games as a way to like blast off some steam.
Yeah. I blame Dean for getting me out of the like I said I've not really bought many retro games in ages. So I blame Dean getting me into the Mister thing. So that's kind of like broke the cycle.
But it's good in a way though, because again, you know, as we've discussed, these things aren't cheap. And if you've, you know, I'm quite lucky in that both my girls are now adults. They're like 20 and 25. So I don't have the worries of young kids like some people might. So I don't have to think about their needs as much as I would have had to like 10 years or so ago. So I have that flexibility with my income that I wouldn't have had once upon a time, and that obviously people with young kids don't have.
Yeah. I'm just thinking now. I say I haven't bought a retro game for a while, but I've just dropped 80 quid on Castle Illusion. So it's a bit
that was the NTSC version, wasn't it?
The NTSC version, yeah. On the Master System.
Oh, the Master System, crikey.
Yeah.
So isn't there no difference though with the NTSC and PAL versions?
Yeah, no, I wanted the NTSC version. It obviously runs quicker, but I wanted the NTSC version for speed running. So
right, all right, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, we get. Well, I say I get called out a fair bit online because I am a bit of a NTSC snob. But it's only largely because I've been importing games since I was 15. So I saw this other world very, very early, and it's just something that I've always done.
It's hard to go back to PAL versions of games, though, once you have played games that, you know, if you've experienced them at the speed that they're supposed to be at, and then you play them and they've got borders and they're slower, you notice the music is slower. It's hard to go back to PAL versions.
Yeah, and so one of the things I find really, really interesting is because again, this is a debate which you can see arguments for either side, and my argument has always been that for the most part, when you're playing an NTSC version of a game, you're largely playing the game, apart from those that were obviously made in the UK, like a lot of Codemaster stuff, and that actually runs better in PAL than it does. But you're playing the game as the developer originally intended.
Yeah.
This is how the game was meant to be. Like there was that huge furore when Sonic the Hedgehog came out on Xbox Live Arcade because everybody was like, "Why is the music so fast?"
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that's what it should be. And so I do kind of understand it, but what I find really interesting is when somebody will say like, "Oh well, I play the PAL version because that's what I played when I was a kid, so I want that nostalgic feeling." And then in the next breath they go, "Oh my god, the new 4K version of Ghostbusters is amazing." And it's like, well, if you want that original authentic experience, surely you should be watching Ghostbusters on VHS. I mean, if you were a proper person, you'd be watching it on Laserdisc, like I would. But you see what I mean, though.
Yeah,
It's that whole. I just don't understand it. So I get playing PAL games when they're the only versions that exist, but it's so much more accessible to get hold of NTSC games and play them now compared to what it used to be. Because again, that used to be a barrier. Like one of the reasons why Laserdisc was so expensive at that time is that if you wanted an NTSC TV, they cost a lot of money, and so subsequently the players and stuff were a huge amount as well. But yeah, when you look at like a lot of the great Amiga games and that, they were always designed to run at 50 hertz and stuff, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, and again, I think it applies more to console gaming than anything else. So yeah, it's interesting why you've chosen that version, because yeah, they just run the way they were always supposed to run. So why wouldn't you want to play that version?
Right. Sorry, guys. My internet cut off for ages, and you're both frozen on my
You missed
screen.
gold, Dean.
I'm sorry, I missed what?
You missed gold.
Gold.
Podcasting gold.
Oh, podcasting gold. Oh, missed bloody loads. Yeah, it cut out for ages. So how far we got to on the question?
We are up to Gradient's question.
Right, okay, cool. All right. So Gradient says it's kind of incredible that the magazine is still running. Most people would have bet against it. I consider it in the same class as Empire magazine, which you mentioned earlier, Darren. His question is, without your own nostalgia lens, which system would you consider to have the best library? That's a toughie.
That's a very loaded question, isn't it?
On the spot.
So you have to obviously look at these things sensibly, and even though they're not necessarily my favorite systems, I would argue that in terms of discovering stuff, the Spectrum is probably up there.
Yep.
And the Commodore 64 for that matter.
Yep.
Because, they had thousands of games and stuff. Talking from a console perspective, you would have to go with the PlayStation, the PS2, and the DS. And the reason for that is because they were obviously the best-selling systems of their time, and because they were so popular, you just had so much diverse stuff on them. And so for example, as much as I love the N64, it's got an incredibly small library, and you can't discover stuff because all the good stuff, everybody knows what the good stuff is. Everybody knows what the crap stuff is. In terms of like, say, the Spectrum, you could go onto something like World of Spectrum, and you could obviously type some stuff in, and even if you ignored like all the hacks and stuff, there are just so many games that came out And I'm sure some of them are terrible, but I'm sure that there'll be plenty out there which I've never played before, and I'd be like, that's pretty fucking good. That when you look at it for the context of its time. And I got into the PS1 and PS2 the last few years, and again, the amount of stuff I'm finding on those which I'd never even heard of, because I just because again, most people only had one console because you could only afford one.
Yep.
So you would have these huge knowledge gaps that you just wouldn't be aware of. And it wasn't necessarily ignorance. It was because all your focus and energy was on buying Saturn games or N64 games or Xbox games or Commodore 64 games, whatever you had, because most people back to a certain point just couldn't justify owning multiple systems. And if you were lucky enough to have multiple systems, you still had a finite amount of money that you could spend on them. So one system would inevitably have more games than another. So, but yeah, I think they're, in terms of computers, and probably the Amiga as well, in all fairness. Yeah, so let's say Amiga as well. So I'm not going to pick one because that's insane.
Yeah.
But I go for those three for each. None of them are my personal favorite systems, but you would have to be massively foolish to not understand the complexities and diversity of their libraries.
Yeah. God, yeah, the DS library, I mean, blimey, that's huge. Just,
yeah. I mean, the DS and the DS's library is phenomenal, just in how it was able to bring you new experiences. And yeah, it was just really popular. And yeah, there's a lot of shovelware on it. Of course there is. But there's a lot of shovelware on the PS1. There's a lot of shovelware on the Wii. There's a lot of shovelware on anything which is popular because it sells and people can make money off it. And if people can make money off something, those systems hang around and people continue to support them, which ultimately is a good thing. So, hell yeah to shovelware.
Yeah. I'll show you.
It keeps your favorite systems going, even if you don't appreciate it yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Look at like stuff like Neighbours on the Spectrum and all that sort of stuff, innit?
Yeah, but this is the thing, though, isn't it? Obviously, there's a reason why Ocean made so many licensed games and why Elite went down that route and various others, because they could clearly make money off them.
Yeah.
And again, we're back to that whole everything comes down to that.
Yeah. Right. King Kong Groover says, if your magazine was a console, at what issue number would it be considered old enough to be covered in your own magazine?
Well, now, I mean, I'm so it's a funny thing. Like when you sometimes see people saying like, oh, I can't believe you put this on the cover. Like, it's only this old. But like when you look at like when Retro Gamer first came out, the Master System was something like 18 years old, and that was considered pretty bloody old. And yet, if you was to put a game that is 18 years old on the cover now, there will be obviously some people who go, well, that's not retro because it came out in 2004, whatever. Which is fine because everyone has their own definition of what retro gaming is. Which I'm surprised you haven't sprung that on me yet. But yeah, it's just time expands and old things get older, but new things become old and they end up going on the cover of the mag.
Yeah,
and you won't always agree with those, but we have to stay relevant to our audience and potentially bring in new people.
Yeah, that's it. It's constant.
I'm not sure if I answered that.
Yeah, no, it goes back to what we first said. I suppose it's constantly evolving, isn't it?
Yeah, if you don't evolve, you die. Yeah, exactly. Ultimately, Darwin had it right when he was studying all those finches in the Galapagos, and you have to evolve, and it's inevitable that you will lose some readers when you evolve, and if you evolve too dramatically. I mean, interestingly, we've only ever had one full redesign, and that was round about issue 64, and even that wasn't completely everything. And what we tend to do now is we just do little bits of the mag at a time, because we know that our readers don't like change.
Yeah. It's weird. Like, you can see it already. Like, I know there will be kids that like some of the older stuff. A few years ago, I took some consoles and a Spectrum down to the local leisure centre for, like, they had a Comic-Con sort of thing. And so I took a few bits down and I put the Spectrum away in the end. Nobody wanted to touch it. I'd got one of the little sort of, the Div MC, is it? You know, it plugs onto the back. So there was no tape loading, waiting for games to load. Everything was instant. No one wanted it. No one wanted to touch it. Everyone was all over the SNES and the PS2. So that you could already see it from that generation that they got no sort of interest. It wasn't there.
I think the other issue as well is that even because you still see it. I mean, I don't obviously go to as many retro events as I used to. But the ones that I did go to, even like 10 years or so back, you would still see the consoles getting more interest than the home computers. But I do think a lot of that is, again, it's just accessibility. You can just like literally do that with a cartridge and swap it over and you're good to go.
Yeah.
And you might not necessarily be able to do that with a home computer. There's always a little bit of setup sometimes. So it's that barrier which wasn't an issue to us when we were kids, because, you know, these things were new, exciting things. But for youngsters today, you don't have that immediate accessibility that you do with a console.
I guess them looking at an old Spectrum game might be like us as kids watching old black and white movies. Sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, that's not to say there aren't people who don't appreciate those. Like, you know, if you look at like our features editor Nick, he's in his mid-30s, so there'll be some systems that he'll cover which are like as old as he is. But you know, he understands what makes those systems tick and can still appreciate them for what they are. And you know, and plenty of people can do that, but some people can't do that, and they'll just see something like Night Law and they'll see how slow it runs when there's a lot happening on screen, and they're like, well, how on earth did you ever play this shit? But we don't see that because it's just like, that's how it's always been.
Yeah. 30, he's
just
a baby.
Like my kid, then. Minus the swear.
30-year-old working on retro gamer. That's mad. I mean, Darran, I've known you for 26 years, so he was only 4 when we was doing Game Style.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Game Style, good old days. My God, I wrote some atrociously bad reviews, and I'm kind of glad you lost most of it, because some of my early reviews.
At least you wrote reviews. I only done a few, I think.
We did quite well though.
Oh, we did
quite well back in the day.
Yeah,
but and you know, it's like I said. I've said it many times in the past. I wouldn't be where I am today without you.
Well, that's very kind of you to say.
Why. Well, no, but it's true. But that's why I always pay it forward, in that we always have lots of readers who will get in touch and say, like, you know, blah 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 blah. I'm interested in writing for the mag and stuff, and we'll always give the vast majority of them a try if they can write, because, you know, I was given a chance. I believe that everybody should get a chance to do something that they're passionate about.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Right, next question, Mitsuyama. Which industry veteran would Darran most like to interview?
Probably,
other than me.
if we're talking video games.
Yep.
If we're talking video games, it would probably have to be Shigeru Miyamoto, because while we've interviewed him in the mag, it's on that occasion it was done by email, and because of the type of magazine we're on, we never got the press opportunities to speak to him like Games TM and the rest did.
Yeah.
So I think when you look at somebody and when you look at the sheer quality of their body of work, I think he is, regardless of what if you like Nintendo games or not, he's had an incredibly
absolutely
impressive and consistent career. And I'd love to ask him some questions.
Yeah.
But most of my kind of like bucket list that I had, I've done. But again, that's largely because I've had 20 years to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Right, Jim?
Yeah. Romero Sierra says, a bit boring and likely to not want to answer, but how much cash does Retro Gamer get from being on Amazon Unlimited? I fear that this is not good for Retro Gamer and Edge, but is too good value for me to refuse. However, I will regret it if either goes out of print. Plus, what's it like to be a retro gaming bird spotting legend?
So I can't really answer that because I don't have those figures to hand. All I can say is that obviously when you talk about anything which is digital, somebody reading Retro Gamer on Readly or an app like Amazon is going to be nowhere near as beneficial to us as somebody physically buying it or taking out a subscription. So, in an ideal world, I would love everybody to have a physical subscription. But again, going back to what I said earlier about lack of space and stuff and the ease of digital, I'd be a massive hypocrite to tell you all to not do that when I do it myself for the things that I like. And again, I've got all my retro gamers here and they take up a lot of bloody space. So, I get why people do it, but yeah, we do not make the money that we would make if it was a physical subscription. Luckily, we do have, as I said, we have a lot of subscribers. Like I think something like 80% of our readership are subscribers. So that goes a very, very long way to ensuring that you'll have something to read every month.
Yeah,
that's impressive numbers.
It is. I see the appeal of digital, and it's something that I've certainly moved more towards in my gaming. But I think with digital magazine, so there's something that, for example, I think it was last month, there was a Daytona article. I think it was last month, could have been the month before. There was a Daytona article.
The cheap one.
That's the one with the horse. Yeah. But I don't know if it was an intentional, like artistic decision or something like that. There was something about it, like maybe there's a colour on the paper or something. I don't know.
That it looked like an old magazine.
It felt like picking up an old Sega mag, yeah. And that doesn't translate in digital. That
is intentional. So one of the things that you've probably noticed over the last 5 months to a year is we've changed the structure of certain things. So we now have a feature called Magazine Craft, which is obviously an interview every week.
Yeah,
Christ,
kill me. Great
every
feature.
Month.
Really, really.
An interview every month, which obviously looks at how classic games mags are made. We also do Cover Mount Corner, which is obviously looking at a popular cover tape from back in the day. And we do Secret Service, which is in the style of an old magazine. All of that is intentional because I think one of the reasons why so many people still buy physical magazines is because they've had them all their life and they still want to have a physical magazine to read. So it makes sense that people would want to either read features about magazines or magazine adjacent like Cover Mount Corner, or they would like to look at stuff that looks like a magazine of old. So yeah, that's been an intentional decision to, again, just like remind readers that while you can get these grandiose videos on YouTube, and while you can read loads of great stuff on the internet, it's not the same as having something physical in your hand and looking at something which reminds you of the good old days, because you've got loads of pictures of like Zap or front covers of XBM or whatever. But yeah, all intentional. We're tweaking those nostalgia nipples, as it were.
yeah, it worked. It worked.
Nicely put. Right, Heavy Metal Don. I can't believe I'm going to ask this. What is Darren's go-to chip shop order?
Always Donny. It's always Donny.
Yeah.
What is this? What was that?
Heavy Metal Don. He's asking, what is your go-to chip shop order?
Right. So when I was a rather big lad, it would be a large portion of chips, a Savoy, and a pie.
Right.
Nowadays, I don't actually eat a lot of chips, but I can say that the last 2 times I went to the fish and chip shop, I had cod and chips, small, both times.
There you go. Right. Well,
that was in the last 4 months.
Right.
Nice.
Okay.
Bit of S&V, bit of ketchup, or
Yeah. I don't do ketchup, but yeah, salt and vinegar, always.
Good stuff.
Right, I'll just let you know, because Heavy Metal Don wanted you to know this. He says, mine used to be chips and a spam fritter and curry sauce, but his bowels couldn't cope with the grease. So he's clear of them. Obviously.
Showing his age now.
Yeah, he says,
tell a lie. I also, on top of that Savoy and the Savoy and pie order, I also used to have a pineapple fritter.
Ah.
So you can kind of understand how I got to about 22 stone at one point, because I did like my food.
Covering the bases though, 105 a day, pineapple. So
well, I again, it's like, I got to have everything. What do you mean? What do you mean? I'm just having fish and chips? Sod that! I will have everything on the menu. I'll eat this, and this. And the bird watching. I just remember the bird watching bit.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, again, if you think about it, I love dinosaurs. I've always loved dinosaurs ever since I was a little kid, and dinosaurs are obviously retro birds, so that's why I like birds.
Makes
Good
sense.
answer. Makes sense. Yeah. Right.
They're just retro birds, and birds are great.
You could have just angered like loads of anti-evolution people there.
Probably, but that's that's the way it is. But and also as well, it's another thing to collect. So every year I restart my bird list, and I have 2 lists. You have what's called a lifer list. So if you see a bird for the first time ever, that goes on one list. And then you have a yearly list, which basically means that every year you can start over, and you can all the birds you've already seen, you can see them all again and make a note of them, and it's great. So yeah, I just like collecting things. Like I said, that's probably the autism in me which does that.
Yeah.
Cool.
John V asked the next question, but I kind of feel like I should ask the last one. So do you want to take the next one?
John V asks, Specky or C64? Does he not know that you're a CPC man?
Yeah. Do you remember, this is a very long time ago, remember when we did that Playground Wars feature? Yeah, that upset a lot of people. I don't know why. Because, it was only kind of like speaking the truth. But I don't know. I mean, what did I have? If I do this from a heart, if I say heart, I will go with Spectrum. 2 reasons for that. My best friend at the time, Paul Elkins, had a Spectrum, so I've got a lot of fun memories playing games at his house, like Saber Wolf and Batty and countless other classics, Paperboy, and the really cool compilation band Soft A tape.
Yep.
And also my mum, because we were a single parent family, my mum used to be working a lot after school. So if I couldn't get into school, I would go next door, and they had a Spectrum, so I would get to play on their Spectrum a lot. And it would get to a point where I wouldn't want mum to come home, because then I could play Bomb Jack and I could play Hyper Sports and all stuff like that. It was great. So with my heart, I would say Spectrum, but with my head, it's the Commodore 64, because of course it is. It's a better. It's
No,
again,
it's not.
you know, when you just look at things objectively, it's got a better sound chip. It can produce largely better visuals. So purely from like an aesthetic point of view, there's a lot of C64 games that just look better than the Spectrum ones.
Yeah.
That's not to say they all do, but
well, obviously
like
not, because
isometric games
Chase
always
HQ
look better.
and Target Renegade.
Yeah. They're still like Chase HQ pisses all over the C64 version, for example. But obviously, the right answer is Amstrad, but that wasn't part of that wasn't the choice.
No.
So I will give an answer that will upset and annoy and excite both camps.
There you go.
And on
Well
that,
done.
we all know that the Amstrad version of Nebulous was better than the C64, don't we? So that was that was established.
It probably was.
Right. You'll see now why I wanted to ask the last one.
It's embarrassing. Go on.
So Dr. No Vocal Cord said, I wanted to know, what did you learn, Darran, from game style legend mentor Dean Swain? Does he still sometimes get a kick when he sees the magazine on the shelf somewhere? And what's your favourite bird? The feathered type. And then he's got some nice feedback, but I'll finish with that.
All right. Well, you know, I said, and I make a point whenever, and Dean will be able to correct me if I'm wrong, because he'll have no doubt read them. But every time we get to an anniversary in the mag, I always make a point of thanking him, and because as I said before, you know, I say that one of the things Dean has taught me most was just persistence, because when we were on GameStyle, you had to do so much fucking work just to be seen by the games industry.
Yeah.
And we, you know, by the time I left GameStyle, the amount of code we were getting in,
that was unreal. We were the only,
compared to what
I was just going to say,
and it was persistence, because like I would make headway, and Dean would give you that encouragement, like, oh, it's great that you've done this, because, you know, I'll be honest, I cynically offered to take over sourcing the reviews, because I just thought, if I can get in more reviews, that will allow me to review the best stuff, and then I can give the other stuff to the other freelancers. But again, Dean taught me to keep pushing to get what you want, and you know, I still do that with a mag. So, for example, the first time I wanted to speak to John Carmack, I spoke to the PRs and they said no. So after that, I literally sent off like 50 emails with all different combinations of what his email might be, and 49 of them bounced back, and one of them didn't. And that was the mentality that we had on GameStyle, because you were such a small site, and you had to fucking push, because if you didn't push, then people didn't know the great work that everybody was doing. And then the other thing as well, like, and I mentioned this earlier, is that he took a chance on me. And I had no experience. I just sent him some copy to him and Jason, and they gave me a chance. And I've always tried to carry that forward, and always give people a chance on the mag, because you never know what people are able to do until you give them the opportunity to do it. So yeah, so that's I know he hates it when I say shit like that, but it's the truth at the end of the day.
Well,
And
it's
if you
your
haven't
work that
if you haven't learned after 24 years, Dean, you're never going to learn.
but it's your writing that I saw, and I thought, yes, that's what we need. And it was your idea to come up with a retro section at that time when we were still looking forward rather than back. So you was ahead of your time in that respect. Do you know what I mean?
I just like retro, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. And just for those who don't know, because a lot of people will be thinking right now, Game Style, what the hell was Game Style? Game Style was a very small, independently run by us website, and it was contending with the likes of IGN and what's the UK equivalent at the time, the big one? I can't remember what they were called.
Was it Total Net or something? Total.net?
Something like that. And, for a little website that I started off on my own originally, but then I realised I need decent people to collaborate with. We were getting review code from EA, which no one else was getting.
I got a Spike City as well, didn't I?
Yeah.
Nice.
And that was mad. And then one night I'm at home eating my dinner, and there's an advert for Metroid Prime come on, and it quoted our review, which was mad.
Oh man, I wrote that review.
I know, exactly. That's what I mean. And to see that on TV, and it says Game Style says, and this is a proper Nintendo advert, this is amazing. And just crazy that a small little site done so well. And it's thanks to this man here, really. So,
well, like I said, it wasn't my site. I just liked writing about free video games, and I've been fortunate enough to turn that into a career. So, like I said, basically, I'm giving up my spare time now because you've been kind enough to invite me on the show, and I get to talk about me. But you guys give up your spare time all the time. Because I'm lucky enough that this is my job and I get paid to do it, and you guys do this because you fucking love it.
Well, no one would be silly enough to pay us.
Well, same with the other magazines we mentioned as well. It's that passion.
Yeah.
And I think this is why retro gaming is so popular, because there are so many passionate gamers out there who are basically keeping it alive. Right, so what were the other two bits?
So do you sometimes still get a kick when you see the magazine on the shelves? And what's your favourite bird, the feathered type?
So I always get a kick out of when I see the magazine on the shelves, which doesn't happen as often now because there's not a lot of shops around. There's certainly not a lot of newsagents. And I can safely say that whenever I see the magazine, it not only fills me with pride, but I will always take it from whatever shelf it's on and put it right at the front.
Good man.
so that everyone can see it, because that's and I've done that ever since I first started on it, and I would be putting it in front of the other gamer magazines or making sure it was as prominent as possible. I still do that now, 20 years later. I'm immensely proud of what I'm able to do and the people I work with. And again, I know that it is a privilege to be able to do what I do, and that many people would love to do it. It's not my many of my family still think that all I do is play games all day. I don't do that. Playing games is a very, very small fraction of my job. It's actually quite mundane in reading stuff and writing stuff and planning and all the rest. But yeah, I've been working in magazines now for 23 years, and it's the best job I've ever had, and I wouldn't change it for the world. And then in terms of my favorite bird ever since I was a young child has been the hoopoe. So if you don't know what a hoopoe is, it's a very cool It's a very cool looking bird. I'd imagine you'll Google it now. It's kind of like it's an orangey buff color. It's got a black and white barred wings, and it's got a big punk crest. It just looks cool because one of the things with British birds is that because of where we live and stuff, many of them are quite drab looking. And we have lots of small brown birds, which are referred to as little brown jobs. Outside of like the kingfisher, we don't have many exotic looking birds. And the hoopoe is an amazing bird, and it's always been my favourite bird. And funnily enough, I've never seen one in the UK because they're rare migrants, and normally when they pop up in really weird places like, say, Portland Bill, and they'll be there all week, and then by the time I get to the weekend to go and see them, they're gone. And I try and make it a habit not to travel around the country seeing rare birds because, again, I've got an addictive personality, and that's something which there's a big difference between spending like money on like a game to spending all your spare time chasing birds and not seeing your family. So it's something that I've always moved away from. However, when we went to Mallorca this year, I actually saw one in real life for the first time, and it was amazing. And I took little photos, terrible photos on my phone and everything. And so I've never seen one in 52 years, and I got to see one this year. So that's my favourite bird, a hoopoe.
Awesome. I just looked at it. Yeah. Big red hair. It's like the Mads of the bird world.
Yeah, it's an awesome looking thing. So to be able to see one of those in the wild was quite the thing. I was almost as excited. In fact, I was probably more excited than when I got my Rare replay signed by a load of guys at Rare recently.
Really?
Yeah, that's how cool it was. Hoopoes, they're great. Look them up.
I just have. Big mohawk, big ginger mohawk.
Yeah,
very cool.
And who doesn't like a big ginger mohawk?
Absolutely.
I'd love to have some hair now. So I'm living through that hoopoe with its gorgeous crest of feathers.
And he finished. He wanted to basically say that he's incredibly. So this is Dr. No vocal cord still. He wanted to say he's incredibly impressed by the consistent quality of the magazine. Long-term subscriber, and it's hell of an achievement to keep a print magazine going for so long. Keeping up the quality, it's even better than ever nowadays, and making a lot of people happy every single month when it drops through the letterbox like him. Huge respect to yourself, Darran, and the RG team.
That's really, really nice to hear, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
that's okay. Did you want to quickly talk about that whole what is retro thing that you mentioned in the text at the beginning, and we didn't get around to covering it?
Yeah, sure.
Or do you want to go?
Yeah, I'm good to stay if you want to.
Yeah. Let's go for it.
So obviously, when we first brought the magazine back, our cut-off point was 10 years.
Right.
And the reasoning behind that is that when you look at most console cycles, you have 2 consoles in a 10-year period.
Yep.
So even if you don't think 10 years is a long time, then the fact that you're covering the PlayStation 1 when the PlayStation 3 comes out or the PlayStation 4 comes out feels like a longer time. Obviously, that changed with the Xbox and the PS3 because they went through those really long cycles. So we changed it to 15 years. So 15 years is now our point, and we'll occasionally drop it to 14, but generally we won't cover anything which is newer than 15 years. In terms of retro, what retro means, like 8-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit, 120, whatever bit. What I've largely learned from working in retro for like 22 years now, because obviously I used to work on the games section, because obviously, aside from the fact that we all use the term retro completely wrong in the terms of what it actually means, I've discovered that people generally consider, when they talk about retro games, what they really mean is the games I used to play when I was a kid, which is absolutely fine. However, those very same people often forget that there were other kids that came after them. So the games that those people played when they were kids, when we had mortgages, are retro games to them. So they may not be retro games to us, but they're retro games to these people. Like I went to a 60th birthday party the other day, and my nephews were talking wistfully about the first time they played Oblivion 20 years ago. So they consider that a retro game.
Yeah.
Whereas we were like, well, we had mortgages when that came out. So just because we don't consider something retro, that doesn't mean it's not considered retro to other people. And that's kind of how we've just done it with Mag. So like, there'll be people who think Banjo-Kazooie is too new a game to put on the cover because, as far as they're concerned, it's 16-bit and 8-bit till I die, and that's absolutely fine. You can't tell people what is retro because they have their own definition of it. But that's what I've learned that retro means to people. It means the games I played when I was a kid. So when we put stuff on the cover, they may not have been the games that you played as a kid, but somebody would have played those games as a kid. And when you see what we're putting on our next cover after Banjo-Kazooie, you're gonna feel very old. But it's that's what it is. So there's no rocket science behind it. And I'd imagine that there'll be just as many people disagreeing with that as there will be agreeing with it, and that's fine, because it would be rubbish if we all liked the same things. We'd probably all just be playing Spectrums.
Nothing wrong with that.
And what a terrible world that would be. I love the Spectrum. I'm only joking. Amstrad forever.
Quite right, though. I still feel the Dreamcast is modern, but there you go. That's just me.
So I think the thing is, though, is when you look at modern games, when you look at the 3D stuff, aside from prettier visuals and slicker controls, if you were to look at like a Dreamcast game and a 360 game from a distance, you'd probably struggle to tell them apart.
Yeah.
Because they kind of look the same thing. And we've only really had incremental leaps. Like, when you look at you had a huge leap from 8-bit graphics to 16-bit graphics, and then the huge leap from 16-bit to 3D gaming. And then you had a significant leap from the PlayStation to the PS2 and Xbox. And then everything kind of just got maybe better fidelity, but worse frame rates, or because there was a need to have particle effects and all this other cool stuff, which looked pretty, but it meant that like the Xbox 360 era. One of the things that I like about being able to play a lot of Xbox 360 games on this Series X now is that they just run at like 60 frames a second, many of them. So you just have a much more enjoyable experience than what you had on the original hardware, because they were either targeting 30 or they weren't able to do that.
Yeah.
And Call of Duty games obviously ran at 60 and that, but when we went up to the HD era, we definitely lost purity of game controls, because everybody was obsessed with making everything look as pretty and as special effects as possible.
Yeah.
And it took a long while to get parity with that. And even now, how many PS5 games and Xbox Series X games come out where they'll run better on the Pro versions than they will on the bog standard versions.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? We kind of had that weird little time as well where everyone seemed to be, I suppose, off the back of the Wii success. We had that little time where everyone was obsessed with motion control. Sony were doing it, weren't they, with the Move, and Xbox with the Kinect.
Well, I mean, look at when you consider the Kinect. The Kinect was, it was a hugely successful peripheral. it sold millions. Granted, they didn't end up bringing a lot of games out for it, but when you actually look at the attach rate of it outside of consoles, it was very impressive how many of those units they actually sold. Like millions. Far more than like things like the Mega CD and stuff like that. So but it's still like look at the PSP. The PSP is considered a failure because it didn't sell as many units as the DS, but it still sold like 80 odd million units. That's an incredible achievement for somebody going into that marketplace.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But again, it's all about perspective, isn't it? At the end of the day, you can always twist things to suit your own narrative.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Cool. Right, I think we're going to have to wrap things up because I'll need my beauty sleep.
Yeah. My throat's getting really sore. I mean, I can talk, but yeah, even my throat's getting. And I've missed Celebrity Traitors.
Oh no!
I'll have to watch it on catch up.
Yeah, the things you do for Retro Asylum.
Well, I don't come on very often and stuff, but I'm not going to lie and say I listen to every episode because I don't, but I do listen to you, and it's been nice to basically be invited on again.
Well,
so thank you.
It's our pleasure, mate.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been great talking to you. Congratulations
we'll
again.
Get you on again at some point.
Well, maybe get me on when my internet's a bit fucking bad. Although in all fairness, it's not been bad the last hour and 12 minutes.
Strange the way it played up. Never mind.
I can only assume that my girls are like just streaming the shit out of stuff in the house, and that's what's causing the problem.
Probably until
and now they've all gone to bed,
or until the traitors came on.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I'd love to, and I'm quite happy to not talk about the mag as well. So,
cool.
But it's obviously it's a big part of what I do because I've been doing it.
Well, you should be
for
proud
so
of it. You've been on it a long time, and it's amazing that it's still going. It's
I thought we were going to get to issue 35. That was my
that was your goal.
That was my prediction.
Yeah,
and we're currently working on issue 279.
You've not done bad then,
hell of an achievement.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Thank you very much, Dean. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And like I say, I subscribe and every month look forward to it. So yeah, awesome job.
Nice.
I think we've even got a Dizzy game in the next issue because we've not covered enough Dizzy games. So I actually found one we haven't actually done a making of yet. So yeah, Magic Land Dizzy is in the next issue.
Ah, cool.
I'm sure Chris and Regan will look forward to that one.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, Darran, it has been a pleasure having you on, mate. And here's to the next 20 years of Retro Gamer.
Oh God, can you imagine it? I'll be 72, probably incontinent, and I'll have even more trouble trying to get whatever we're using for the internet working. but you never know. Fingers crossed.
Yeah,
and
you never know.
The
mate.
PS5 will be in the magazine. The Switch 2.
Yeah, PS5 will be on the cover, mate.
Yeah. Thanks again, Darran. It's been absolutely brilliant.
Cheers, mate.
No problem. Thank you.
Congratulations again.
Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode. It was a right giggle to record, but also a complete nightmare at the same time. So, lots of connection dropouts. It must have cut out at Darren's end at least 10 times, and then towards the end of the episode, my video cut out as well. So, stitching this episode together has been a complete pain, but hopefully it was worth it and you enjoyed the episode. Anyway, I just want to thank Jim for taking part and of course Darran for coming on. But most of all, I want to thank you listeners and our Patreons. It really helps, guys, and please do spread the word of Retro Asylum. It warms the cockles of our heart when we know you're enjoying the show. Anyway, until next time, take care, keep it retro, and we shall see you very soon. Bye-bye. Right, you cut out there, I'm afraid, Darren. So we got as far as...
All right.
It was just that.
So
it was just after I said there's a market still for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so basically, as long as magazines like Retro Gamer, as long as you can stay relevant, you can keep on increasing your readership and keep on increasing your subs. There's no reason why we won't still be around in like 5-10 years, and these other magazines have got a very good chance of doing exactly the same.
Yeah.
Am I still
You're
here?
still
You're
here,
still
mate.
here.
It went, but it came back. We're good. We're
It
good.
did. So when you're looking at new systems to cover for
Fuck's
Retro
sake,
Gamer,
it's gone again.
is that something you
Oh my god!
you have like a conscious cut off?
He's gone off
You're never
again.
going to have me back on at this rate.
We'll go again.
And it's gone again. Fuck's
Is it
sake. I bet
froze
Mike
again?
Forces are looking at porn or something.